6, 1989, the worst massacre in Canadian history occurred when 14 women were murdered at L'École Polytechnique. Shortly after 5 p.m., a gunman walked into an engineering class. He separated the women from the men, ordered the men to leave, and after yelling, "You are all a bunch of feminists, I hate feminists," he opened fire on the remaining women. His 22-minute rampage would spread to 3 floors, the cafeteria, and other classrooms. He roamed through the corridors yelling, "I want women." Before he turned the Ruger Mini 14 on himself, 14 women were dead, murdered solely because they were women.
It was based on an extreme hatred of women. And I think it's dangerous not to look at that.
On December 6, 1989, 14 women were murdered because someone thought they stepped out of line. On that day, all their power and potential was taken from them.
And that day, like no other, would become a catalyst for women and men to unite, to stand up, and to take action on violence against women. But while the CAW mobilizes around December 6th every year, our history of engagement in the fight to end gender-based violence is not limited to one day.
Acknowledging that economic pressures and social safety nets are fueling an increase in violence against women, CAW National President Buzz Hargrove said, "Remembering simply isn't enough."
We can commit ourselves today as part of our ongoing commitment on this important social issue facing our sisters, as that all of us will make it a priority in our bargaining to bring these programs in place that again will show our sisters that we truly believe in ending violence against women.
People are not up at the mics today talking about individualism. They're talking about the collective good of our nation. They're talking about the collective good, about stopping violence.
I challenge every man in this local, I've been in this local for 36 years in this union, to go back to their workplaces and not just end the physical abuse, but the psychological abuse. Make sure that we get women's advocates in every plant because we need them.
We are close, providing we keep the momentum and we don't rest until we finally have legislative protection for women in the workplace, and then we expand that legislative protection to make sure we go into our homes and we just stop this insane violence against women once and for all. We owe it to the sisters in our union, we owe it to our daughters, and we owe it to women more in society.
We have to commit ourselves in the province of Ontario to make sure that women have the right to refuse the harassment and violent situations in any workplace across this province, and in fact, right across this country once we get the legislation that is needed in the province of Ontario.
Proposed legislation would also address domestic violence that intrudes its way into the workplace. And it would allow workers to remove themselves from harmful situations if they have reason to believe that they are at risk or of imminent danger due to workplace violence.
13 long years after the Laurie DuPont and Teresa Vince incidences, that finally the government is recognizing that their citizens are being affected adversely in the workplace by something that's called violence.
Who would have envisioned us leading the way on changes to the Occupational Health and Safety Act in Ontario?
I wish more people knew the extent of the involvement of the CAW in social justice and equity issues.
Canadian auto workers, some of you certainly were here.
was one of the first organizations in the country to support the Coalition for Gun Control. The Canadian Auto Workers was one of the first organizations in the country to make a donation to the very small Coalition for Gun Control, and the Canadian Auto Workers has stood up on this issue every time we've needed them over the last 20 years. So I want to start by thanking the CAW.
In the year 2000, past President Buzz Hargrove further reminded delegates of our commitment to gun control when he introduced another National Executive Board statement on violence against women. At December 2009 CAW Council, President Ken Lowenza reaffirmed the CAW's position on gun control, denouncing the federal government's attempt to abolish the long gun registry on the eve of the 20th anniversary of the massacre at L'École Polytechnique.
Supports gun control, and we need to make sure that what we have achieved, which isn't nearly enough, is not undermined. Every single politician needs to be accountable, and especially those who say they are our friends.
The 20th anniversary of the Montreal Massacre must be more than just another number, another day to commemorate, another day to mourn. This December 6th must be a call to action.
And CAW sisters and brothers answered the call. Under the direction of the CAW Women's Department, activists created and maintained the Facebook page Save the National Gun Registry, Say No to Bill C-391. They wrote and submitted a brief to the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security hearings on the bill, initiated an open letter to Layton signed by over 637 women leaders in less than 2 days calling for the NDP to stand up for the registry, and made saving the long gun registry a priority at the 2010 CAW Women's Conference.
12 NDP and 8 Liberals helped Stephen Harper pass legislation which will dismantle the firearms legislation. The Liberals have decided to whip the vote, so if gun control is dismantled in this country, it will be a result of probably 10 NDP members voting with the Conservatives. And I know that the CAW's been working really hard to reduce that number, but basically that's what the Conservatives need, 10 votes, and it looks like they will get them from members of the NDP party unless there is a lot of action over the next 4 weeks.
In large part, due to CAW lobbying efforts, along with coalition partners, including the police, NDP MPs began to switch their votes.
In Sudbury, we are joined by NDP MP Glenn Thibeault. He just announced days ago that he will change his vote now to support the registry.
Today, a fourth NDP MP, Ontario's Malcolm Allen, changed his mind and he'll now vote to keep the long gun registry.
The fifth New Democrat, Carol Hughes, announced today she will switch sides by voting against Tory backbencher Candace Hepner's private member's bill to eliminate the registry.
You've been listening live to NDP MP Peter Stauffer. He represents the riding of Sackville Eastern Shore. He will not be siding with the government in deciding to scrap and kill the gun registry. He will be on the side of saving the registry.
Well, the NDP says it now has enough votes to save the gun registry.
Under the direction of Sisters Jenny On and Julie White, the campaign continued in Ottawa as CAW leaders and activists joined a coalition of labour groups and CLC affiliates to lobby on the Hill.
Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security recommendation not to proceed further with Bill C-391, an act to amend the Criminal Code and the Firearms Act, repeal of the Long Gun Registry, presented on Wednesday, June the 9th, 2010, be concurred in.
All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Sigradera. Madame Hughes. Mr. Stauffer.
Yeas pour 153, 153. Nays contre 151, 153.
Good evening. The opposition fired a shot on Parliament Hill tonight, voting down the Harper government's plan to kill the Long Gun Registry. So the registry survives, but barely, with a slim 2-vote margin to keep it alive. The Prime Minister says tonight abolition of the gun registry is closer now than it ever has been before, and the Tories are warning the opposition that this will be ammunition for an election campaign that surely will come.
After 15 years, opposition to the Long Gun Registry is stronger in this country than it has ever been. With the vote tonight, its abolition is closer than it has ever been. We will continue our efforts until this registry is finally abolished. Thanks. This government and this party is not going to rest until that long gun registry is abolished.